There is a silence that exists between each heartbeat, a pause so brief that the mind forgets it, yet the soul remembers. Within that pause lies a rhythm older than any human civilization, a whisper that the ancient masters once followed, not through machines or medicines, but through the quiet intelligence of life itself. They called it the code of the heart. For centuries, the knowledge of this code was guarded by those who understood that the heart is not merely an organ, but a temple, a transmitter of divine frequencies, capable of aligning the body with the laws of creation. In the monasteries of the East, in the high valleys of Tibet, in the hidden sanctuaries of Egypt, whispers of this secret persisted. It was said that when the heart is tuned to the original rhythm of life, no illness could remain, and no despair could take root. But somewhere between progress and forgetfulness, humanity lost the code. We began to see the heart as a pump, not as a sun within the chest. We began to measure its beats, but not its meaning. And so, the very center of our existence, the instrument that connects heaven and earth within us, was silenced by noise, by rush, by fear. Yet the code still lives, waiting to be remembered. It begins not with action, but with awareness. The ancients taught that before one can heal the heart, one must first listen to it, truly listen. Beneath the surface of thoughts, beneath the noise of the world, there is a vibration that pulses through every cell. When one sits in stillness long enough, the body begins to echo that vibration. It is the same pulse found in ocean waves, in the movement of trees, in the slow breath of dawn. The masters knew, to strengthen the heart is to realign it with this universal pulse, and to do so, one must remember the language that life itself speaks, a language made not of words but of light, rhythm, and intention. In ancient temples carved from stone, initiates were brought before a bowl of pure water placed under sunlight. They were told to gaze upon the water until they could see not their reflection but their vibration. Only then did the first lesson begin. The water, the monk said, was alive. It mirrored the heart. When fear or anger entered the initiate, the water would tremble. But when love filled the room, the surface became still, clear as glass. It was not magic, it was resonance. The human heart is 99% energy, 1% matter. Science calls it electromagnetism, but the masters called it divine coherence, the moment when thought, breath, and emotion merge into one harmonic field. In that state, healing begins, not as an event but as a remembrance. Many centuries later, fragments of these teachings would resurface in hidden manuscripts. One text, preserved by a lineage of healers in Alexandria, spoke of the inner sun, a force that radiates from the chest, capable of purifying blood and renewing the spirit. Another spoke of a chant so simple it could be mistaken for a sigh, a sound that harmonized the heart's rhythm with the earth's frequency. The words were simple, yet their vibration was sacred. They carried a frequency that could restore order to what the modern world had disordered. The monks knew this chant could awaken the sleeping intelligence of the heart, strengthen its pulse, and open a channel of communication with the divine matrix that sustains life itself. They did not call it prayer. They called it remembering. To remember is to return to what was always within you. When a man remembers the code of his heart, he becomes like the tree that no storm can uproot. His blood flows not only with oxygen, but with intention. His body does not resist the world, but dances with it. Even his cells begin to glow with an unseen light. In the modern age, people speak of heart strength as muscle tone, as endurance. But the masters spoke of strength as harmony, the ability of the heart to stay open in the face of pain, to keep its rhythm pure even when surrounded by chaos. They believe the true heart is a bridge between matter and spirit, between thought and creation. The first sign that one is awakening this lost code is a change in breath. In the monasteries, the disciples were taught to breathe not through the lungs, but through the heart. Each inhalation was an act of receiving life, and each exhalation an act of gratitude. Do not breathe, their teacher would say, until you can feel the breath of the universe moving through you. It took weeks, sometimes months, but one day they would feel it, the warmth that rises from within the chest, as if a small sun were being born inside. That warmth, they said, was the key. It was the signature of life's alignment returning. Today, when a person feels anxiety, the heart tightens, the pulse quickens, the breath becomes shallow. But when the ancient breathing is remembered, something miraculous happens. The heart begins to slow down. Its rhythm synchronizes with the Earth's magnetic field. The mind softens. The cells open. The body enters coherence, the forgotten state where healing becomes natural. Science has touched this mystery without naming it. Researchers discovered that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. They found that emotions can alter the heart's electromagnetic field, measurable up to several feet away. They call it heart-brain communication. The ancients called it the conversation with the divine. The code of the masters was not a formula. It was a living practice, a discipline of awareness. They lived in harmony with the cycles of the moon, the tides of the sea, the rising and falling of their own breath. They ate slowly, prayed silently, and spoke only when words carried light. Their days were built upon a sacred rhythm that mirrored the beat of the earth itself. In the archives of an old Himalayan monastery, a parchment was found bearing a faded symbol, a circle within a triangle, surrounded by rippling lines. At its center, a single dot. Monks who studied the symbol said it represented the 4 levels of the heart: the physical, the emotional, the energetic, and the divine. The dot in the center was the code itself, the point of silence where all levels converge. To enter that silence was to enter eternity. They believed that when a person reached this center, time slowed, the body regenerated, the spirit awakened, and even the voice changed, becoming softer, slower, carrying an authority that came not from intellect, but from alignment. Legends speak of masters who could calm storms or heal fevers simply by resting their palms over the heart and whispering the sound of the pulse. They knew that life responds to coherence, that water, air, even fire obeys the rhythm of the one who remembers the original frequency. And yet they never called themselves healers. They said they were only mirrors, reflections of what every human already possesses within. The power to strengthen the heart is not given, it is reclaimed. When the masters taught a disciple to awaken this power, they began not with herbs or chants, but with forgiveness. A closed heart, they said, cannot be strengthened. It must first be freed. Forgiveness, to them, was not a moral act, but a vibrational one. Each resentment stored in the heart created distortion, like static in a song. When that static was released, the music of life returned. The pulse became clear again. In one ancient ritual, performed only under the full moon, initiates were taken to a mountain spring. They were told to place their hands over their hearts, to speak the name of the person who had hurt them, and to release them into the water. The monks believed that the molecules of the spring carried memory, that the act of release would rewrite the vibration of the heart itself. Modern science would later prove that water stores information, that its structure changes with intention, with prayer, with sound. What the monks practiced was not superstition, it was proto-science, a language of vibration long before machines could measure it. When the initiate released their pain, the water shimmered differently, its light fractured into colors unseen. The heart's rhythm steadied, and the masters would nod, knowing the first key had been turned. They called this stage the softening. To strengthen the heart, one must first soften it. Strength without softness becomes resistance. Softness without strength becomes collapse. But when both merge, the heart becomes what it was meant to be, the silent conductor of the universe within the human form. In this harmony, miracles begin to happen. Wounds heal faster, sleep deepens, thoughts grow lighter, and sometimes even the face changes. Lines soften, the eyes regain their glow. For when the heart is strong, the body becomes luminous. There was one final teaching given only to those who had completed the journey. The master would bring the disciple before a mirror lit by candlelight and say, "Look not at your face. Look at the flame that lives behind your eyes. That flame is the same light that burns in the sun, in every star, in every heart. Protect it. Strengthen it. Live from it. That is the code." And so they did. Across centuries, this wisdom faded, buried beneath medicine, machinery, and the illusion of control. Yet every few generations, a seeker rediscovers it, not through books, but through experience. They may sit quietly one morning, hand over chest, and feel the pulse not as a beat but as a message. In that moment, the code whispers again. You were never separate from the source. The masters are gone, but their rhythm remains. It lives in the wind, in the ocean's tide, in the quiet between your breaths. It lives in the silence of your heart. When you remember it, you will not need to chase healing, for healing will chase you. You will not need to fight against time, for time will move through you like a friend. You will begin to understand that the heart was never just a part of you. It was the whole, the meeting point between the finite and the infinite. The lost code is not lost. It is waiting, in the stillness, in the warmth of the chest, in the pulse that has been speaking to you all along. Close your eyes. Listen, do you hear it? The masters called it the beginning of remembrance. They say that the heart remembers what the mind forgets. The pulse that beats inside your chest is not just the echo of blood. It is the rhythm of creation itself, a fragment of the cosmic song that began long before you were born. Every heartbeat carries a message from the infinite to the finite, a vibration that once guided the masters who walked the earth with unshakable calm, radiant health, and eyes that saw beyond matter. They had discovered the second layer of the lost code, the resonance of light. It began with an understanding. The heart is not in the body. The body is within the heart. The ancients spoke of this truth in whispers because it reversed the entire understanding of existence. If the heart is the center of your being, then your world is nothing but the projection of your inner frequency. Every illness, every joy, every connection, every loss, all are reflections of the vibration that the heart emits. And when that vibration loses harmony, the world mirrors it back through pain. The masters knew that to strengthen the heart was to return it to its original resonance, the frequency of divine order. They called it the echo of light. It was said that this echo could be seen, not just felt. When one entered deep meditation, the air around the body shimmered faintly, and those who had trained their sight could perceive thin waves of luminescence rising from the chest, a golden breath of the soul. Light, they believed, was not external. It was the language of the heart. And every emotion either brightened or dimmed its glow. There are texts written by Sufi mystics that describe the same light, Nur al-Qulub, the light of hearts. They believed that when this light was pure, no fear could enter, and the heart would beat in rhythm with the divine. In their gatherings, they did not speak of curing disease, they spoke of remembering light. Their songs were not for entertainment, but for calibration. Frequencies sung in sacred patterns that mirrored the mathematics of the stars. Each sound, each breath, each silence was part of a geometry unseen by the eyes, but felt by the heart. This was the code, harmony as medicine. In the temples of India, the same truth was taught under a different name. Yogic masters spoke of Hridaya, the spiritual heart, not the one of flesh but the one made of light. They said this heart existed before the body was born and will continue after it dissolves. Its rhythm, when aligned, governs the balance of every cell. But when forgotten, the imbalance begins, disease, fatigue, sadness, fear. To awaken Hridaya, the masters used light and sound, not the light of lamps, but of consciousness. They would face the sunrise and breathe slowly, allowing the golden light to enter through the eyes and descend into the heart. The eyes are gates, they said. Let the dawn enter your soul. As the light entered, they whispered the ancient syllables that carried the mathematics of harmony. These were not words in the common sense. They were vibrations, each one corresponding to an element. Air, water, fire, and earth. The most sacred of all corresponded to the fifth element, the unseen ether, the field that binds them all. It was this fifth vibration that awakened the heart's strength. In modern times, scientists have found that light itself affects the heart's rhythm. Exposure to sunrise light recalibrates the circadian rhythm, synchronizes hormone cycles, and balances blood pressure. But to the masters, this was not physiology, it was prayer. The light was a divine signature, reminding the cells of their origin. One monk described the experience as being seen by the sun. "When I let the light enter me," he wrote, "I realized it was not I who was looking at the sun, and it was the sun that was looking at me." The heart expands in that gaze. Its walls soften, its rhythm steadies, and something miraculous begins to happen. The body remembers. The ancient code teaches that memory is not only in the brain, it is in every cell, every drop of blood. The heart, being the conductor, carries this cellular memory like a melody. When fear dominates, the melody becomes fragmented. When love returns, the music rewrites itself. The masters called this repatterning. They would place their hands over their hearts and imagine a light spiraling inward, not from the outside, but emerging from within. With each slow breath, they visualized the light expanding, enveloping their body, then their home, then the entire landscape around them. The heart, they said, was not contained. It was the center of an infinite sphere. Each day they would practice until the light remained steady, even in darkness. They trained the body to listen, to synchronize its every cell to this light-born rhythm. This was not religion, it was alignment, the lost physics of the soul. In the West, mystics of old Europe practiced a similar art but cloaked it in symbols. Alchemists wrote of the inner gold, the radiant substance that strengthened life and purified matter. They believed it resided in the heart and could be awakened through devotion, silence, and breath. The transformation of lead into gold was never about metal, it was about the heart, transforming density into radiance, fear into faith, chaos into coherence. The heart, they said, was the furnace of alchemy. And the code, that secret formula, was nothing but light in motion. One alchemical diagram shows a man standing within a circle of stars, rays flowing from his chest toward the heavens. Around him, the words read, "In lumine cor vive," in the light, the heart lives. Scholars dismissed it as metaphor, but those who practiced knew that the light was literal. They could feel it, the warmth that begins in the chest and moves like liquid gold through the body. To strengthen the heart, one must feed it light, through thought, through intention, through gratitude. Gratitude, they said, was the purest form of light. It was the current that completed the circuit between man and the divine. When you feel gratitude, even for a single breath, the cells open like flowers, the blood carries a new message, the rhythm shifts, healing begins. A student once asked a master, "How do I know when my heart is strong?" The master replied, "When every moment feels like sunlight." That was the sign. It was said that when the code was fully activated, the heart emitted a field so coherent that it affected the environment itself. Plants grew faster near those who had awakened it. The air felt lighter around them. Even animals approached without fear. The vibration of love, when perfected, was not poetic. It was measurable. Centuries later, modern instruments would confirm it. Devices can now detect the heart's electromagnetic field several meters away. Scientists find that coherent emotional states, compassion, peace, gratitude, produce ordered patterns in that field, influencing both the person and those nearby. The ancients would smile at this discovery. They would say, "Science has finally seen what the soul has always known." But they would also warn, "Light without intention can fade. The heart must be nurtured daily." The masters taught a ritual so simple it was often overlooked: the sun within. At dawn, they sat facing east, hands over heart, eyes closed. They visualized a small flame inside their chest, a seed of the divine sun. With each breath, they imagined the flame growing brighter, filling the chest, the veins, the entire body. Then they whispered, "I am the light that breathes." They did this not to worship the sun above, but to awaken the sun within. The flame symbolized vitality, the pure electrical energy that powers every cell. But it also symbolized something subtler, consciousness itself. They believed that when this flame was strong, the body could endure any hardship. Emotional storms, illness, even aging, all became gentler waves upon the surface of a luminous sea. The pulse slowed, the breath deepened, and the heart regained its ancient memory. This was the secret of longevity that surrounded the masters. They lived long, not because they resisted death, but because they became aligned with life's eternal rhythm. Their hearts did not fight time, they harmonized with it. The greatest of them were known not by miracles but by presence. When one entered their space, a silence fell, not empty, but full. A feeling of peace that seemed to breathe on its own. People left their presence healed without touch, comforted without words. It was not they who healed. It was the field of coherence their hearts generated. This field, invisible yet powerful, was the living embodiment of the code. It was the echo of light that moved through them, from the divine source, through the heart, into the world. Each of us carries this potential. The same light that once shone in the temples and monasteries still burns quietly within every heart. It does not demand belief. It only asks remembrance. If you close your eyes now, you can feel its whisper, a warmth spreading from the center of your chest, a faint hum in the silence between breaths. That is the pulse of the universe speaking your name. The masters believed that if humanity remembered this pulse collectively, wars would end, diseases would fade, and the earth itself would heal. Because the planet's heartbeat, they said, is not separate from ours. We have forgotten this connection, blinded by noise and speed. But the code remains, patient, waiting in the quiet moments when you stop running and simply feel. Perhaps the reason you are here listening is because your heart has already begun to remember. The next step, the masters said, is to let the light move through you, not as an idea, but as a living presence. You will know it when it comes, a calm that feels ancient, a strength that feels like surrender. When that moment arrives, you will understand that the lost code was never lost. It was hidden inside the light that your heart has been sending out with every beat since the day you were born. And the world, that great mirror of the unseen, will begin to respond. This is the beginning of transformation. In every human being there exists a sacred fire, unseen, unmeasured, but undeniably alive. It does not burn with heat or consume with smoke. It is the quiet radiance behind the pulse, the secret current that turns blood into light and breath into prayer. The masters called it the inner flame, and they taught that this was the true heart, the divine fire through which life itself speaks. When the flame dims, the body weakens, the spirit loses its song, the world appears gray, heavy, and hollow. But when the flame brightens, the same world transforms. The air feels alive, the body feels lighter. Even time seems to slow, as if the hours themselves are bowing before the sacred rhythm of your inner light. This is the moment the transformation begins. The lost code of the heart was never meant to remain in words or rituals. It was a process, an initiation through which the human being remembers that they are not a passive vessel, but a living instrument of creation. The masters understood that the flame within the heart responds to consciousness, to attention, to love. The more one becomes aware of it, the stronger it burns. The stronger it burns, the more the body aligns with the harmony of life itself. This was the mystery that united all traditions under one silent truth. The heart is the altar, the breath is the offering, and light is the prayer. The transformation begins with surrender. The masters would tell their disciples to close their eyes and place a hand over the heart, not to control it, but to feel its pulse. "Do not command the flame," they would whisper. "Allow it." They believed the flame did not belong to the self. It was the self, the eternal spark that travels through lifetimes, remembering what the mind forgets. In this surrender, something extraordinary happens. The boundaries between body and energy begin to dissolve. The pulse slows, but its echo deepens. The breath becomes spacious, almost transparent. You begin to feel not the heart within you, but yourself within the heart, as if your entire being is floating inside a vast, luminous field. This was the first sign of transformation. When the heart's light expands, everything it touches begins to reorder itself. Old memories surface, emotions long buried rise to be cleansed. The masters taught that purification is the natural consequence of awakening, not punishment, but release. The flame burns what is no longer needed. In those early stages, the body may tremble, tears may flow, and the mind may resist. But the masters would smile gently, saying, "Do not fear the burning. Only what is false can burn. To strengthen the heart, the inner flame must first consume the shadows within it. It was during this phase that the disciples were guided through sacred movements, slow, circular gestures that mirrored the spiral patterns of galaxies. Each motion was synchronized with breath and intention, allowing energy to circulate freely through the meridians of the body. The heart, they believed, was not a single point, but a radiant center connected to every cell. When its rhythm changed, the whole body followed. One master described the process as becoming liquid light. He wrote, "At first the light flickers like a candle in the wind, but when the breath steadies, the light grows stable. It fills the chest, then the spine, then the crown. Soon you realize it was never confined. It was always infinite. You were the limit." This realization was the essence of transformation, that the heart does not need to be strengthened from the outside. It strengthens itself when you remove the illusions that weaken it. Fear, resentment, guilt, doubt. These are the veils that smother the flame. Remove them, and the fire burns pure once more. In the silence of ancient sanctuaries, monks would sit in circles around a single flame. For hours they would gaze into it without blinking, until the outer fire became indistinguishable from the inner one. They said that when the two flames merged, the visible and the invisible, the human being entered a state of divine coherence. Their hearts would beat in unison, their breathing synchronized. The air itself shimmered with a subtle glow. In that space, healing occurred effortlessly. Diseases dissolved not because they were fought, but because the vibration that sustained them was replaced with harmony. The flame inside each heart communicated with the flame of the others, creating a field so coherent that even the most stubborn pain yielded to it. They called this state Anahata Shakti, the power of the unstruck sound. The term came from the belief that the heart emits a silent tone, a frequency that underlies all living things. When that tone is pure, the body thrives. When it is distorted, imbalance manifests. The masters, through devotion and breath, learned to retune that frequency until their bodies resonated perfectly with the tone of the earth. And the earth responded. They noticed the rain fell softer, the plants grew closer to their dwellings. Even the wild animals, sensing peace, lingered nearby without fear. The transformation of the inner flame was not personal, it was cosmic. When the heart heals, the world heals through it. In one ancient record preserved in the archives of Alexandria, a mysterious phrase was found inscribed on a fragment of parchment: "In cordis igni terra respirat." In the fire of the heart, the earth breathes. This was not metaphor. The ancients understood the unity of life, that the rhythm of the human heart mirrored the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic pulse of the planet itself. Modern instruments now confirm this connection. The Earth's heartbeat averages around 7.83 Hertz, the same frequency produced by a heart in deep coherence. The masters had discovered this long before the language of science existed. Through silence, they had mapped the invisible. They taught that when the inner flame grows strong, it aligns with the planetary pulse. The individual no longer lives on Earth, but with Earth. Every heartbeat becomes an offering. Every breath a dialogue with the divine. Transformation is not the gaining of new power, it is the remembering of ancient harmony. In this state, the masters experienced what they called lucid embodiment. The body became transparent to the light within it. Each cell vibrated like a tiny sun, each molecule a note in the great symphony of existence. They could feel the blood moving not as matter, but as light. Liquid consciousness circulating through the vessel of form. And in that awareness, fear vanished. Because fear can only live where separation exists. Once the heart remembers it is the source of all connection, fear dissolves like mist before the morning sun. Those who reached this stage no longer aged in the same way. Their bodies regenerated faster. Their eyes sparkled with youth even in old age. They slept deeply, awoke without heaviness, and moved with the grace of one carried by an unseen current. The transformation of the heart was, in truth, the transformation of time itself. When the pulse aligns with eternity, time loses its grip. One disciple described the moment he first entered this state. It felt as if I was standing in the stillness between seconds. Everything moved around me, the leaves, the wind, the waves, yet I was the unmoving center. My heart was the axis, and from it creation flowed. The masters recognized this as the rebirth of the inner flame, the moment when man becomes one with the rhythm of life. From that day forward, the disciple could heal by presence alone, not because he had gained a gift, but because he had become transparent to the source. The flame burned so purely that it radiated through him without distortion. The lost code of the heart is not a secret, it is a state. It cannot be taught by words, only awakened by remembrance, and yet the masters left instructions, symbols carved in stone, verses whispered across generations, rituals that carried the vibration of the original code. Each symbol, each chant, each silence was designed to trigger a memory deep within the heart's intelligence. They understood that the heart possesses neurons, cells of awareness that think, feel, and remember independently of the brain. These heart neurons record every moment of love, every act of forgiveness, every instance of compassion. When activated, they form a network of light that reconnects the physical and spiritual dimensions of being. When this network awakens, the body becomes self-healing. The blood changes. Its structure becomes more crystalline, more capable of carrying light. The cells communicate more efficiently. The immune system responds not out of defense but harmony. This is why the masters lived without fear of disease. They did not resist life. They resonated with it. And their flame, the same one that flickered within you as you read these words, became the link between heaven and earth. The transformation of the inner flame is the moment when man ceases to be a seeker and becomes a transmitter, a living bridge through which divine intelligence flows into the world. But the masters warned of one danger: attachment to the light. They said the flame must burn freely, not for personal power, not for control, but for service. The moment one claims ownership of the light, it dims. The moment one shares it selflessly, it multiplies. Thus, true mastery was not in the brightness of the flame, but in the humility to let it shine through without interference. In that humility, the heart becomes vast. Its rhythm merges with the stars. The body becomes a vessel, the mind a mirror, the soul a river of radiance flowing endlessly toward the source from which it came. This is the secret of transformation, not the changing of who you are, but the remembering of what you have always been. Light in form, love in motion, eternity in breath. And as the flame grows steadier, a new pulse begins to emerge, slower, deeper, wiser. It is the sound of the infinite speaking through your chest, guiding you toward the next revelation. For the masters taught that transformation is only the middle of the journey. Beyond it lies awakening, the moment when light becomes wisdom and the heart becomes the voice of creation itself. Listen. The flame is speaking. It says, "You are not becoming light. You are remembering that you have always been it." There comes a moment when the seeker no longer seeks, when silence is no longer absence, but presence, when every heartbeat begins to sound like a prayer and the body itself becomes an instrument of the divine. This moment, the Masters said, is the awakening, the remembering of the rhythm that gave birth to all life. The ancients called it the rhythm of the divine pulse, the unseen current that flows through everything that breathes, everything that moves, everything that exists. It is not bound by language or religion. It is the same pulse that moves through galaxies and rivers, through wind and breath, through the heart of every being that ever lived. It is the rhythm of creation remembering itself. When a human heart awakens to that rhythm, something extraordinary occurs, a merging of worlds. The physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen, the measurable and the eternal, become one continuous flow. The body no longer feels heavy. Thought no longer feels fragmented. The soul begins to breathe through matter, and matter responds with light. In this awakening, the Masters found immortality, not the refusal of death, but the understanding that life has no end. They spoke of it as the great remembering. It is said that when this rhythm awakens, the sound of the heart changes. In deep meditation, it no longer beats with pressure but with music, a soft resonance that vibrates through the entire being. Some disciples described it as a subtle hum, others as a chorus of distant bells. In truth, it is both vibration and silence at once, the language of God spoken through the chambers of flesh. This was the final revelation the masters guarded. The human heart was not merely made in the image of divinity. It is the image, the mirror through which the Creator experiences creation. The heartbeat is the echo of the source remembering itself through you. When this realization dawns, life changes forever. The Master Yao Lin wrote of this awakening in a scroll, now lost to time. There came a night when I sat in stillness, and I felt the earth breathing through me. The wind outside moved with my breath, my heart beat, and I heard the mountains echo. The river's song entered my veins, and I knew the world was not around me. It was within me. This was the essence of the divine rhythm, unity without boundary. To the awakened heart, separation becomes illusion. The stranger becomes reflection. The air itself feels familiar, as if every particle of existence is whispering the same word. 1. The Masters said that when a heart enters this rhythm, its pulse becomes so coherent that it synchronizes with the heartbeat of the earth itself. The human becomes a vessel of planetary harmony, and in that harmony, healing radiates not from will, but from being. Wherever they walked, grass grew greener, children smiled, pain dissolved. They needed no temple, for their body was the temple. They needed no ritual, for their breath was the ritual. And yet they never spoke of miracles. They said they were simply remembering the laws of resonance that had been forgotten. Every master who reached this state described the same pattern. First came light, then came fire, then came rhythm. Light awakened awareness. Fire purified form. Rhythm united the two into one living presence. It was rhythm that made life eternal. When the rhythm of the divine pulse flowed freely, the body regenerated itself naturally. Cells communicated with a precision beyond human understanding. The bloodstream carried not just nutrients, but intelligence, a vibrational memory of harmony that instructed every atom how to live in balance. Science, centuries later, would find that the heart emits rhythmic electrical patterns that organize the nervous system, influence the brain, and synchronize biological functions across the body. They would call it heart coherence. The masters would smile and say, "You have discovered what we once sang." For song was their science. The temples of the divine rhythm were not built from stone, but from sound. Inside them, initiates sat in circles, chanting in tones that matched the frequency of their heartbeat. Slowly, the rhythm of the group aligned. The sound waves merged. The air shimmered with a golden vibration so pure that even those outside the temple felt peace in their bones. It was not worship, it was alignment. The masters believed that the universe itself is a song, that matter is frozen music. Light is rhythm slowed into form. They taught that to strengthen the heart is to return to the source of that song, to vibrate in unison with the first sound, the word that created all things. This word was never spoken by the mouth. It was felt by the heart. The ancient Hebrews called it the Shem, the sacred vibration that sustains creation. The Hindus called it Om, the sound of the universe. The Egyptians carved it as the symbol of the sun disk, the circle that radiates from the center of all life. Each culture gave it a name, but all spoke of the same thing, the rhythm that connects heaven and earth through the human heart. When that rhythm awakens, the body becomes the bridge between realms. You begin to feel currents moving through you, waves of light flowing from crown to chest, from chest to feet, from feet to sky. Your breath becomes circular, effortless. Your mind becomes transparent. And then comes the still point. Every master knew it. The moment when rhythm and silence become one. It feels like dying, yet it is the opposite. The heart pauses, not in fear but in union. For an instant, it stops beating as an individual heart and begins to beat as the heart of the world. This is the doorway. Through it, the masters entered the state they called the infinite pulse, a vibration so vast it could be felt beyond the confines of time. They said that in this moment every prayer ever spoken, every breath ever taken, every heartbeat in the universe could be heard as one great rhythm. the eternal breath of God, and when they returned, they brought with them a new silence, the silence that heals simply by existing. This is why the presence of the awakened feels different. You feel it when they enter the room, you feel it in the stillness between their words. They are not doing peace, they are peace. The divine rhythm has taken residence within them, and through them it speaks. The masters taught that this rhythm could not be forced. It cannot be commanded by discipline alone. It can only be invited through humility, devotion, and love. Love, they said, is the highest frequency of rhythm. It is the vibration that carries all others within it. When the heart vibrates with love, not desire, not attachment but pure compassion, the divine pulse naturally awakens. The body becomes tuned to the frequency of creation itself. The masters demonstrated this in ways that defied logic. One could slow his heartbeat until it stopped for minutes, then resume it at will. Another could project warmth from his palms that melted snow. Yet another could sit in the freezing wind without shivering. These were not tricks. They were consequences, the natural outcomes of coherence between man and God. To the awakened heart, there was no difference between inner and outer. A breath could heal, a glance could awaken, a single heartbeat could ripple through the field of reality and transform everything it touched. And yet they remained humble. "Do not worship us," they would say. "Worship the rhythm that moves through us." They knew that this rhythm did not belong to them. It belongs to all who remember. Every person, every child, every elder carries the divine pulse within. It does not matter where one was born or what one believes. The pulse does not ask for faith, it is faith made flesh. It is the quiet certainty that you are not alone, that every moment, something greater than you is breathing with you, guiding you, loving you into existence. To awaken to this truth is to awaken from the dream of separation. The masters would remind their disciples, the divine rhythm does not begin when you meditate. It has never stopped. It is you who has not been listening. When listening returns, life becomes sacred again. The simplest things, the taste of water, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of footsteps, begin to feel like holy rituals. You start to notice how everything has its own pulse, the sway of trees, the flight of birds, the flicker of fire. And then you realize they all move to the same rhythm as your heart. In that realization, gratitude overflows, because you see that everything, the joy and the sorrow, the rise and the fall, the birth and the death, all dance to one beat. There is no mistake, no chaos, only rhythm too vast for the mind to grasp. That is why the masters smiled even in pain. They understood that pain too is part of the song. It presses the heart so it can open wider. It slows the rhythm so we can hear more deeply. And when love meets pain with awareness, the rhythm strengthens, the heart expands, the pulse becomes eternal. This was the final transformation, when the human no longer fights the rhythm of life, but dances with it. The masters taught that once awakened, this rhythm begins to guide you in every moment. You no longer need external signs or teachers. The pulse itself becomes the guide. It tells you when to move, when to rest, when to speak, when to remain silent. It aligns your path with unseen precision. It will lead you toward what nourishes your soul and away from what diminishes it. And you will begin to live as the masters lived, not apart from the world, but as the world remembering itself. This is the awakening of the divine rhythm, the moment when the lost code stops being a mystery and becomes the living breath of your existence. The heart beats and the universe listens. The stars move and you feel them inside your chest. You have not found the code. The code has found you. It has waited lifetimes to awaken through your pulse. Now as you sit in silence you may feel it, a soft warmth behind your sternum, a rhythm that seems both ancient and new. That is the sound of the divine remembering itself through you. Listen to it. For the Masters said, when you hear the pulse not as a sound but as a presence, you have entered eternity. And eternity, they whispered, is not far away, it is beating in your chest now. There comes a quiet hour when everything stands still. The air feels weightless, as though even time has stopped to listen. In that silence, the heart reveals its final secret, the reflection. The Masters called it the return of the mirror, the moment when the seeker no longer looks outward for truth, but inward, into the radiant depths of their own being. It is here, within this inner mirror, that the eternal heart is seen for what it truly is. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, but the living expression of the divine itself. The journey has been long, from curiosity to revelation, from fire to awakening. But reflection is not an ending, it is a homecoming. The last veil is not torn by effort, but lifted by grace. And grace, they said, is born when the heart finally becomes still enough to see its own light. The masters taught that the eternal heart has no boundaries. It beats before birth and after death. It moves through generations, through oceans, through the very atoms that form the stars. Its rhythm is the architecture of existence, the sacred geometry upon which life unfolds. Every heartbeat you have ever felt is a reminder of this truth, that you are not a fragment of creation, but its continuation. When the eternal heart reveals itself, there is no fear, for fear lives only where time exists, and the eternal heart has no time. It exists in a state beyond measure, where past and future merge into one infinite now. This is the reflection that transforms perception. You begin to see the world not as separate objects, but as reflections of the same light, playing through different forms. The masters used to say that the divine sees through our eyes. When we look at the sky, it is not we who gaze upon it, but the infinite seeing itself. When we feel the warmth of another's touch, it is not skin meeting skin. It is eternity recognizing itself in another shape. In this understanding, compassion ceases to be effort. It becomes identity. You do not choose to love. You realize you are love. And with that realization, the heart's strength becomes limitless. There is a temple hidden deep in the mountains of Bhutan, where the final teachings of the code were once whispered to initiates. It is said that within its stone walls, the air itself vibrated with a frequency so pure that every visitor left in tears, unable to speak for days. The monks there taught that the heart, when truly awakened, becomes transparent. They called this state crystal heart. In the crystal heart, emotion no longer clouds the rhythm. It becomes its music. Joy, sorrow, loss, hope, all are instruments through which the divine plays its song. Nothing is rejected, nothing is resisted. The awakened no longer divide experience into good or bad. They see only movement, only flow. And through that flow, the eternal heart speaks. Its language is not words, but resonance. It communicates through coincidence, through dreams, through the subtle feeling that something greater is guiding each step. It is the whisper that tells you to take a path when logic says otherwise, the sudden sense of peace in the middle of chaos, the warmth that arrives without reason. These are not accidents, they are the signs of alignment. The masters believed that the universe itself rearranges in response to the frequency of the heart. When you remember your true rhythm, life begins to move differently. Doors open, encounters happen by design, the impossible becomes effortless, for the eternal heart is the conductor of reality. Every thought is a note, every emotion a tone, every act of love a vibration that ripples across the unseen web of creation. The masters knew that to live consciously from the heart was to participate in the ongoing act of creation. You become a co-creator, not by commanding the world, but by harmonizing with it. They used to say, the strong heart does not control life, it sings with it. In the reflection of the eternal heart, even death loses meaning. Those who had mastered the code did not fear death because they no longer saw it as departure, but as transition, the heart releasing one rhythm to begin another. They said the soul moves like a wave, withdrawing from one shore only to rise upon another, carrying the memory of light. One ancient story tells of a monk named Aran who, upon feeling his final heartbeat, smiled and said, "I am not ending, I am changing time." His disciples wept as his body grew still, but the room filled with a fragrance like spring rain, and they felt their own hearts expand, beating in unison with something vast and unseen. It was as if his pulse had dissolved into the air, yet continued within them. This, the masters said, is how the eternal heart continues, from one vessel to another, from one era to the next, its rhythm never broken, only passed along like a sacred torch. And you, now, are part of that lineage. Every moment you breathe with awareness, you feed the flame. Every time you forgive, you clear the channel. Every time you choose peace instead of anger, the eternal heart beats stronger through you. It does not matter how many times you have forgotten. It only matters that you remember again. For the heart never holds grudges. It waits in silence, ready to begin anew at the first sign of attention. To reflect upon the eternal heart is to see yourself through the eyes of creation. It is to realize that every experience, the laughter, the heartbreak, the solitude, was never punishment or reward, but invitation. Each one designed to bring you closer to remembrance. The heart grows strong not because life is easy, but because life invites it to open. Every challenge is a pressure that forges clarity. Every wound is an opening through which light enters. The masters understood this deeply. They would sit in pain without resistance, knowing that the eternal heart could not be harmed. They allowed the rhythm of suffering to move through them until it transformed into grace. They called this final process the turning of the flame. When the flame of the heart burns without consuming, it becomes light. When it shines without attachment, it becomes wisdom. When it loves without condition, it becomes eternity. The masters said that in this final stage, even breath becomes optional. Some could rest for hours without breathing, sustained only by the pulse of the universe itself. They had merged with the rhythm so completely that the separation between self and source vanished. This was not an escape from life, it was the completion of it. For when the eternal heart is awakened, the world no longer appears as something to survive. It becomes something to serve, to bless, to illuminate. You begin to see that every person is a mirror of the same divine spark. You bow not from submission, but recognition. And in that recognition, peace becomes unbreakable. The world may tremble, but the heart remains still. The storms may rise, but you no longer fear them. You understand that the same hand that stirs the sea is the one that beats within your chest. This is strength beyond power, the strength of surrender, the power of harmony. In their final teachings, the masters would ask their disciples to return to the beginning, to sit once more before a bowl of water under sunlight. They would say, "Look not for your reflection, but for the light within it." And in that moment, when the water stilled, the disciple would see not their face, but the pulse, tiny ripples forming from the vibration of their own heart. The reflection shimmered, and in it they saw eternity. For the secret of the lost code was never hidden in temples or scrolls. It was in that shimmer, the union of light and movement, of stillness and sound. It was in the simple truth that the heart, when remembered, is the doorway to the divine. The masters are gone, their words carried away by time, but their rhythm remains. It flows through every sunrise, every wave, every breath that fills your lungs. You have felt it since the beginning as the quiet call to return. Now you know where it leads. It leads home, to the place within you that has never aged, never feared, never broken, the place that watches through your eyes, breathes through your lungs, and waits patiently for you to remember that you were never lost. Sit quietly now. Feel the warmth in your chest. Feel the gentle pulse that has never stopped. That is the eternal heart, the master that never left. The light that never fades, the code that was never hidden. The journey ends where it began, in the stillness between heartbeats. There, in that sacred silence, the universe breathes with you. And if you listen closely enough, you will hear it whisper, not in words but in rhythm. You are the pulse. You are the flame. You are the reflection. You are the infinite remembering itself. And so, the rhythm continues, the divine heartbeat, eternal, unbroken, forever within you.